Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to another show. I'm so excited today because I have a man here with me today. If he doesn't have any money, he knows how to make some. So let's talk to Mr. John Rogers of Ariel Capital. How are you?
It's great to be here. Great to be back.
Slow and steady win the race. How did we coin that phrase?
Well, I coined the phrase about 35 years ago. When I started Ariel Investments, I was trying to be able to show people I'd be a prudent, careful investor. And so I got the idea that being the patient investor would be something that maybe would be memorable. And that way I'd also have a logo with the turtle holding a loving cup, reminding people that old Aesop's fable.
But you were pretty smart even at that time, to come up with something like that. Slow and steady. You said you would be prudent. That means you would be focused. You know how the market is running, and you jumped in and stayed consistent, right?
We've been very consistent. I still do exactly the same thing today that I did when I started. I still focus on small and mid-cap stocks. Got the same phone number, Yeah. I've had 2 offices in 35 years, so I do stick to it.
And you have a fantastic office. I've been to one of them, I know that. So, when I bring you on, I know I want to talk about money because people are investing in stocks, but they don't really, not experts. So what do you say to the young investor, the person who's looking to make a little money? Because, let's face it, you put your money in the bank, you might as well put it under the mattress, except for the security,
Exactly.
But you know what I mean? They don't give you any money. So the investment's got to be the way out, but how do you know?
Well, I tell 2 things. I talk about 2 things. One, I say if you're going to do an individual investing, invest in what you know, invest in what you understand. The world's greatest investor, Warren Buffett, always says, invest in your circle of competence. So if you know a lot about running shoes, invest in, Nike or Adidas or whatever you like. If you know a lot about computers, you invest in Microsoft or IBM, If you know a lot about social media, you focus on Facebook and Google, etc. So you got to figure out what you know well to be a successful investor and focus on that. Don't listen to tips from other people. Invest in what you understand.
Well, what about technology? Were you technically inclined coming up? I know you are a financial wizard, but a little investments in technology. You were never good at computers and none of that?
I'm old enough where I didn't get a lot of exposure to computers when I was coming along. So I don't invest in technology stocks. I invest in more simple businesses that have what they call a moat around them, where it's hard for new competitors to come in and transition an industry or change an industry dramatically.
Yeah. So obviously it's been enough for you to stay focused in that area, and you didn't lose much sleep saying, if I coulda, woulda, shoulda. You've been...
Well, where I don't lose sleep over, but what I tell young people today, and when I talk to their parents, I tell people it's one thing to be a great investor and know about the stock market, but it's at least as important to figure out how to think about financial services careers and what are the most lucrative parts of the financial services world. So one of the things I always tell people is to go to your college and work in the endowment office. And if you're working in the endowment office at your college, you're going to learn all about private equity and venture capital and hedge funds and all the place where real wealth is created today. Mm-hmm. And often our community, we didn't have that exposure growing up. And so I didn't know anything about that world. Right. But as you know, right now, our governor is a private equity guy worth almost $1 billion.
Right.
He's running against J.B. Pritzker, who's a venture capitalist. He's a billionaire. That's where the money is.
Yeah. Now, you and I have talked over the years, and you've been a great person in coming on to talk to people, but just as you mentioned venture capitalists, and you talked about the hedge fund. Now, you were somewhat angry about these hedge funds, and it seemed to have an exclusion when it comes to you and I, people who look like us. And you still haven't been happy, even though you own a number of boards. But you're always advocating for, quite frankly, black people. You don't. A lot of people talk about diversity, which certainly has its place, but you want to know what are they doing for black people in particular. and you haven't always been pleased with the answers that you've got. And,
That's for sure.
but I mean, people don't see you as this, you know, angry kind of guy, you know. But I've seen you rather forceful when you know, dealing with these people on the large scale. So, how do you get your point across without appearing to be this reverse this racism? You know, because they'll tag you with those things.
Well, what I try to do is to tell people that they should live up to the commitments that they make to others. That's what my father always taught me to do, is that whatever you say you're going to do, you do.
Yeah.
And so many of these boards, so many of these universities, hospitals, all these institutions say they care about diversity and inclusion,
Right.
and they want to have more minority students, they want to have more minority employees, but then they're spending their money only with white men.
Right.
And it's something, I got this data once from, there's an Ivy League school that for their endowment, they have dozens of firms that manage their endowment at this Ivy League school. There are 260 investment professionals to work for those firms that make over $1 million a year.
Just for
Working at one of the firms that works for this university.
right.
Okay, so 260 making over $1 million a year. Out of that 260, one is African American and one is Latino, making over $1 million a year. It shows you how excluded we are. This university has all kinds of public mandates about how important it is to have more minority students, more minority professors. So what I've told the president of the university is I've said, you're not living up to the values that you say you believe in. You're not doing what you say you're going to do. It's so important. It's great you're going to get more minority students into your school, but it's more important to make sure those minority students have a chance to have successful, lucrative careers once they leave your school, the way the white students do.
Would you like to see more people who are in your position speak out? Because a lot of people are rather quiet. They say, well, I got mine. I don't want to rock the boat. But of course, you secure for yourself, but at the same time, you continue to advocate, and that could be disastrous in some cases for you. They might want to punish you every damn day. I mean,
I find that. Well, there's a couple things. So there's a lot there. So one of the things we've tried to do is that the last 16 years I've talked to you about, we started a conference called the Black Corporate Directors Conference. Right. And we did it with our friend Charles Tribbett from Chicago, who was at Russell Reynolds. And last year we had 160 directors come. And we had some great speakers. We had everyone from Howard Schultz, the CEO of Starbucks, to Shonda Rhimes and Kerry Washington, two dynamic black women.
Yeah.
But every year we have also what we call the conscience of the conference. People we've had Reverend Jackson there, we've had John Lewis, we've had Andy Young, we've had Harry Belafonte, we've had Dr. Calvin Butts. People who know and believe that we have a responsibility to fight for our community when we get into leadership roles. And so we bring directors there, we have these great speakers there to remind them that it's just not getting on the board, but you've got to fight for our community once you're there.
Right.
And it's really, hopefully we're slowly but surely changing people's minds. Because otherwise, if we don't speak out, those white CEOs think, well, things must be okay.
Yeah.
We got our black director, nothing's, they're not complaining, so we're just going to keep doing things the way we've always done them.
I always admire the way you handle things because a lot of people forget where they come from. And as I say, you've been an investor since at least 16. And I don't want to tell the people how old you are now. But, I've seen you in New York with the Wall Street Project with Reverend Jackson. So you don't just, and even, I guess, the Silicon Valley, when he would have his thing out there. So you support Reverend Jackson, but he's been an advocate on behalf of black people in the financial world for a long time, and many other areas. And so this has kept you consistent with him. But some of those people kind of have short memories. I mean, do you ever give them a little nudge and push? And because, I mean, on Saturdays, you right there at Operation Push. Yeah. And as you said off camera, you're kind of a local guy. In fact, I think you did a wonderful joke about that when we were having this conference and you and some of the other money-making people were talking about global.
Yep.
And you, only you could tell the joke.
Yeah, well there were these African-American entrepreneurs and folks from government talking about the importance of all of us being more green and global as black business people.
Yeah.
You know, you got to be green and global. And I said, instead of being green and global, I'm going to be black and local.
Yeah, and I think that's I speak for itself.
So I called Reverend Jackson and said, I finally had my first rhyme.
Right,
You
well,
know,
beautiful. Brothers and sisters, we're talking to John Rogers of Ariel Capital. Now, you have a prominent person. She'll always be prominent because you recruited her at an early age and you made her your president or CEO. You're the CEO.
yes,
Yeah, but she's the president, Melody Hobson.
yes.
She's still with you.
Yeah, Melody is still with us 27 years later.
Doesn't make any difference how much money she had. She's still with you. That's good.
I know, we've been very, very fortunate. I knew she had a lot of potential when I met her when she was 17 years old as a prospective Princeton student, and she became a summer intern. And she says she's the only person from her Princeton class that has exactly the same phone number.
Is that right?
Yeah, so it's been great. She's been a great business partner, a great leader for us. She makes such a difference, and arguably she's the most successful African-American woman finance leader in the country's history.
Yeah. She's always been on the national scenes, even working with you, but she's been a spokesman, and people listen, and she makes it so simple as you do. But how many employees do you have now?
We have about 90.
90. That's a lot of people, you know, for to be in the financial world. That means you either know how to make money or people are giving you some. Which is it?
Well, we have a great team of people, and we have about a dozen people in New York. We have a couple people in Los Angeles. We even have one person in Australia. So
In Australia?
yeah, so they're out there marketing and trying to build our business. But we have to get bigger because, you know, it's hard being the small local entrepreneur. We haven't been able to crack the major universities in town like DePaul and Loyola and Roosevelt. They basically only want to work with firms run by white men.
But why is that, though, John? You own every panel. I mean, whenever a discussion comes up about money, Ariel is always mentioned.
Yeah.
You know, people always talk about what a wonderful guy you are. Why don't you have?
I think it's just been tradition. When I've had the conversations with those university presidents, they say, well, when we work with black businesses, we want to use black construction people, black caterers, which is really important. But I tell people, and I tell them, that's a modern day Jim Crow. The black and brown people only do the catering and the construction, and the white men get to be the lawyers, the accountants, the financial executives, the technology executives, where the real wealth and jobs are being created today. And we've been able to show that it can work if you get the right kind of leader. So at the University of Chicago, where Bob Zimmer is an extraordinary president, we now have 80 professional services firms that are working with the University of Chicago that they were not working with them 10 years ago. And why we can't get that exported to the other universities and museums in our town to be able to work with our local businesses and give us a real chance to participate in our capitalist democracy here in our city.
Well, you certainly, you know, you're not running for office, but you politically inclined. You know all the players, and you think that the city of Chicago, which is a $3-4 billion budget, are you making any money with them? Are you managing any of their municipal program?
The city's had a long history of working with minority business. You know, going back to Harold Washington, we got our start during Harold's years. Cecil Partee was the city treasurer. They became our first $1 million account managing money for the city of Chicago's pension plan. Currently, we manage money for the Chicago teachers. It's been a great client. The Saltwater Reclamation District, Cook County. The local government agencies have been great. We just got added to the 529 program for the state, where people who have kids can invest now directly there. And State Treasurer Frericks opened up those doors. So I don't have any complaints. I think actually the government has done a great job. But what I think the government can do a better job of is putting pressure on these nonprofits that need government support for everything they do. A lot of the museums are on city land. They get a direct subsidy from the Chicago Park District. So they have a responsibility, I think, to work with minority businesses the way the city government does and the county and the state government does.
Now, you mentioned the University of Chicago, and I think now they have completed their trauma center, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and I think a lot of these hospitals get benefits for non-for-profit. So can't they throw in some added opportunities for minorities? I mean, because they have an awful lot of money. You mentioned DePaul, but the University of Chicago is giving you more than most, I guess.
Yeah, I should say there, I'm been a trustee for over 20 years. Actually, and to the point you made earlier, as much as I've been an advocate there for minority business, now I've become vice chairman of the University of Chicago. So instead of being punished for my outspokenness, I've been rewarded there at the university. And they're doing extraordinary work across the board. You know, that was a tough decision to build that trauma center.
Right, it was.
But President Zimmer and the team and the head of the hospital, they made the right decision to do the right thing for the community. And all I wish is we could export those best practices to those other universities and museums in our hometown to have that same kind of spirit and values.
Well, look, what we're going to do is take a break. Did I tell everybody this is John Rogers? And if you want to talk to him, we are live. I forget that, wherever you are in the world. So if you want to call us, 773-434-6625 or 773-434-6631. You can email us at crow@crow.org. And I think we're on YouTube as well, live, and Facebook as well. We're on all of those, huh? And we're streaming live. Okay, I'm going to take a break and see. If you want to call us, you can. We'll be right back.
The Munir Muhammad Show is brought to you by ComEd. For tips on managing your energy bill and helping the environment, call 1-800-EDISON-1 or visit ComEdCare.com.
ComEd Smart Ideas presents the power of energy efficiency. Altogether, you have saved over $700 million, all because you took part in our energy efficiency programs, like our central AC rebates, fridge and freezer recycling, and lighting discounts. The small changes you've made to be more energy efficient really add up. The math is easy. ComEd's energy efficiency programs equal savings for you. Learn more about energy efficiency at ComEd.com/home savings. ComEd, powering lives.
The sweetest little granddaughter in the world. You're everything I hope for. You are so beautiful. I love you, Emma.
A restaurant that serves delicious home-cooked meals at an affordable price like your grandmother used to make? Well, the search is over. Stop by McAuthors, the new talk of Chicago. We offer a warm atmosphere with friendly service and excellent meals ranging from carry-out, dine-in, or catering for your special events. McAuthors is open 7 days per week from 11 a.m. until 9 p.m. Come visit us at
5412
West Madison Street or call us at 773-261-2316.
This portion of the Munir Muhammad Show is brought to you by Ariel Mutual Funds, where slow and steady wins the race.
We're back, and brothers and sisters, we're talking to John Rogers. And I get so excited when I know I'm going to have John on. But the problem is I want you to talk to him as well. And that's why I'm urging you to call him, 773-434-6625 or 434-6631. I wanted to ask you about these banks. How is it that they can only give you a 0.5% interest on your money, and you know they're making money with your money? I mean, well, what is the reason behind that?
Well, I think that the Fed has kept interest rates historically extraordinarily low. This is the lowest they've really been on a sustained basis in modern history. So I think that's been the excuse for the banks to be able to keep the rates very, very low, because the Fed has kept rates very, very low. And more and more, there's fewer and fewer banks. Everyone is consolidated. They've all bought each other up.
Right.
So it's all part of one big thing. So you have less competition. So if you've got less competition, that's going to be able, they can price their products in a way that makes sense for them.
So let's talk about investments. You don't really solicit the little guy, but is it any particular reason why would?
No, we want anyone that has $1,000 or more is welcome in Ariel Mutual Funds, or they put $50 a month away. And Mario,
So you could do it in the form of annuity, like
just put people can have it automatically deducted from their paycheck. $50. So we want individuals to come down to our offices, meet with Mario Gage, who you've met, who works with our individual investors. We have a whole team there to work with individuals.
They'll advise you, and
we'll advise you, tell you which funds that we can offer, and give you advice where other places to go to get advice. We also hope that people will ask their place of employment to have our funds added to their 401k plan.
okay.
And as I mentioned earlier, we are an option in the 529, so anyone who's got a child and wants to put money away for them, we're an option there, so we really appreciate that. So I think that we want to make sure that we want everyone to be a part of the Ariel Mutual Fund family.
So how does one, what does one have to get a chance to talk to the big man?
We've come, if you just come on a day that I'm in the office. And
so you will take a look and listen.
No, and I meet with individual investors all the time, and groups of Jack and Jill students have come down to visit with us on a couple of Saturdays recently, and that's been really fun to get the really young ones started in the markets, and they'll come back later with their parents to talk about how to get going, what their favorite stocks are. Mm-hmm. So we love doing that, and it's so important to get people started at a young age. That's what helped me. My father got me started when I was 12. So we want to try and make sure that others have that same experience.
I mentioned, and I've interviewed, you mentioned Mario, because when he was going to your school, Ariel Academy, you teach and train young people how to get involved in stocks there. And they have a kind of a classroom of investors, don't they? The young,
yes, well, the way it works, the Ariel Community Academy, is a K through 8 school. It's 46th in Greenwood, about 500 students. It's a public school,
okay.
All union teachers. And we give every first grade class gets a $20,000 class gift. And they let us manage it the first 6 years. And then 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, they have what they call the junior board of the students that comes down to our offices, works with our analysts, talks to us about their favorite stocks. We sort of guide them and give them advice on how to do research on individual companies and industries. We go down to their school and talk to the students there and give them advice on how to do research on stocks. And then they start to pick the real stocks with real money.
Well, what made you develop this? I mean, what was the incentive for you as a company? What are you just, what were you thinking?
Well, it was interesting. When we started the school over 20 years ago, Arnie Duncan was working along with his sister at Ariel doing all of our philanthropic work.
The former CEO.
Yeah, the former CEO of public schools, the former Secretary of Education in the Obama administration. And so Arnie and I had grown up together. He was a great friend. So he came up with the idea that we should start a small public school. That was the best way to impact lives in the community that we cared about. Right. And I think both of us felt we had gotten a wonderful education. We were really lucky, and so we wanted to make sure as many young people could have that kind of experience that we'd had of having a great education in a smaller school. And along the way, in those early years, a realization came to me that we should have a saving and investment curriculum for the kids, because so few people partner with public schools the way that we had, but because we were a financial services company, it just made sense for us to make sure that we were bringing kids along and helping get them prepared for, knowing how to save for college and invest in their 401k plan and invest in and get the right mortgage for their house. We want to make sure that our young people had that experience and that exposure.
Well, mathematics certainly has its place. Caller, you're on the air with John Rogers.
Assalamu alaikum, Brother Munir.
Wa alaikum salam.
And good evening to you, Mr. Rogers.
Good evening.
You mentioned Ariel Capital School, and my grandson, about 4+ years ago, attended that school. He since has moved to Phoenix, and I was very sad about that because I really loved that school. It was a wonderful little school.
Thank you.
I actually have a question, and I hope it has not been asked. You have, or at least I've read in Forbes magazine about an acquisition of KKR and it being publicly traded. And if you can speak on why that's important and why your company has, I guess you can say, gone with it, merged with it, or how you can best explain that to me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for the question. KKR is one of our favorite stocks. It's the largest position we have in Ariel mutual funds. We have about 40 stocks in Ariel Fund, our flagship fund that I've been managing now for 31 years.
Okay.
We've had a 11.4% compounded return over that 31 years.
Is that right?
So we've been really proud of that long-term record. And the way that we get great returns is to find great companies to invest in. And we came across KKR. KKR is one of the largest private equity firms in the world. And more, as we talked about earlier, more and more of these universities, endowments, foundations, and big pension funds have their money in private equity. And we think that's just going to get larger and larger. It's going to grow larger and larger. And KKR, being around for a long, long time, has a great brand, great performance. We thought they would be a prime beneficiary of more money flowing into the private equity world. Henry Kravitz, who runs the company, is a legend in the industry. So to be partners, in a small way, we're small shareholders, but to be able to be small shareholders in a wonderful business like KKR, it's worked very well for us. The other thing I would say is Henry has been one of those rare CEOs of a private equity firm who's really interested in diversity. So as we've talked to him about the importance of having more diversity in private equity. We've sent him some folks, and he's actually hired some of the African Americans we've sent him. One young man was a White House fellow. And now he's helping to have a real successful start to his career out on the West Coast, working for KKR. So we really have been pleased with our investment and pleased with the leadership there.
You know, I haven't seen Valerie lately. Is she back in Chicago?
Well, I think Valerie's spending a lot of time between Washington, D.C., New York, and here in Chicago. You know, her mom still lives here.
Right.
Her daughter lives in D.C.
She's a reporter or something.
Yeah, she's on CNN.
Yeah.
And Valerie was really great to join our board of Ariel Investments when she left the government. And, you know, Valerie's one of the smartest people I know.
That's right.
She's got great judgment. And so I'm really proud and excited that she was willing to come and join our board of directors.
It's very difficult for people to turn you down. Didn't she have she convened a business group when she was in D.C. and had you to head it up in some way?
What she worked with me on and worked with President Obama on was that I became the chairman of the Council on Financial Literacy. Yeah. And during the first term, it was really a great experience. And they picked me to chair that because of the work we had done with the Ariel Community Academy. Right. Charles Schwab had been the chairman of the committee during George Bush's during George Bush's administration. But it was a great thing because there were a lot of CEOs on the council, the Secretary of the Treasury, Secretary of Education, the head of the CFPB were all ex officio on the council. And we basically came to the conclusion that we told President Obama we should find ways to get more financial services companies to partner with urban public schools the way that we have. Right. And we think all the big mutual fund companies, all the big banks, all the big insurance companies should pick public schools in their local communities and engage with those young people, getting them involved in not only learning about investing, but also thinking about financial services careers. Because often, you know, we just don't know how lucrative these careers can be. And you and I have talked about it. You know, the wealthiest guy in Chicago right now is Ken Griffin. He's a hedge fund guy who's worth several $1 billion. He's had years where he's made more than $1 billion in 1 year. Right. Well, we need to be exposed to those kind of career opportunities, and often we don't know about them.
So what do you say? I mean, when you think about all the wealth of knowledge that you have, and you're always trying to depart it, but do you think that, you know, we look at this table, it's a lot of room up here, so it's like a plateau. Do you and your other people who I mean, do you have any more John Rogers? I was in London, and I interviewed this guy who I thought was fantastic. He was from Parliament, and he gave me this book right away. He said, "I'm not the only one," because I thought he was brilliant. So I'm asking you, are you the only one? I mean, because look, even when you were on board of McDonald's, I don't know, are you still there?
Yes.
Yeah. And you always advocate, but where are the rest of the Johns? You know, the four, and not that you're the only one, it has to be somebody else. But I mean, you just do it with ease. It doesn't seem as if, like you say, you were rewarded and you become the vice chairman of, the University of Chicago, and you fight for people.
Yeah, we're hoping, as I said earlier, through our conference to bring more people along. There are some great leaders here in town. James Bell, who used to be the CFO and interim CEO at Boeing, and now he's on the board of Apple and J.P. Morgan Chase. He's one that's in the boardroom fighting for us. At Exelon, I know you know Emmett Vaughn,
right,
and his boss, Bill Von Haney.
I know Bill.
Yeah, they have been in there making a huge difference in Exelon for our community, giving all kinds of opportunities for all types of minority businesses to work with Exelon and make sure we have more Frank Clarks coming along because of that. So there are people out there. Marty Nesbitt's done a great job with the Obama Foundation, making sure that that 50% of the spend on the construction is going to minority-owned, black-owned firms. But at the same time, there's going to be black law firms and insurance brokers and real estate brokers and money managers, public relations firms. People of color are going to have a chance to participate in all the spend at the Obama Library, and Marty's the chairman of the board. So there are people out there fighting this good battle with us.
Yeah, Marty, he gave me his number a few times. He was going to come on the show. Maybe he'll take time to do that. Caller, you're on the air with John Rogers.
Yes, good evening again. My question is in regards to the lottery. I often see that the person can take one lump sum or they can stretch it out for a period of time. When a person gets a large sum of money like that, which is best in your opinion, to get it in one lump sum or to stretch it out for the 20 or 30 years? Thank you.
That'd be a nice problem to have. I'd love to have that problem.
Yeah.
When I was in college, I won $10,000 in the New Jersey lottery.
Yeah.
And I was also on Wheel of Fortune for 3 days, and I won over $8,000 in prizes. So I'm big on trying to play games to add to the savings.
You played a game with Michael Jordan, you beat him in basketball.
Thanks.
Yeah.
But back to the question, I think it's smart to spread it out. Because
So
I
in
think
the form of annuities,
but I know they give you that option to spread it out, and I really do believe that.
But if you pass before, I don't think it goes to a beneficiary, does it?
Well, I think it should.
It should, but I'm saying I think that was the handicap. That's why some people take the lump sum.
And I bet every state's maybe it's a little different.
Yeah, probably.
Probably in every, but I think that the idea is if you have the option of being able to take it for the long run and make sure your heirs can get it, I think that's the right thing to do, because otherwise it's just tempting. If you get all that money at once, then maybe you spend it faster.
Yeah, I would spread it out if I knew that I had a beneficiary.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I would take the lump sum if I felt I was going to be gone in a few days. And, brothers and sisters, we're talking to John Rogers, and just a wealth of information. But allow me to ask you about McDonald's. Is someone black the chairman of the board now?
No,
because our guy retired, didn't he?
Yeah, the chairman of the board is Rick Hernandez, who's a Latino leader from California. Don Thompson is no longer the CEO.
What does Don do now?
He's doing some great boards. He's on the board of Northern Trust. He's also we own stock in Northern Trust, and he also is on the board of Royal Caribbean, which we also just coincidence, happen to own stock in that too.
Okay.
And Don has started his own food company. It's called Cleveland Avenue, and he's really helping to incubate different types of food concepts. And so people who are trying to build a new restaurant opportunity, they can come to Don for advice and counsel, as well as funding. And he has a great restaurant too, right across from Gibson's Italian. It's a beautiful restaurant, wonderful food. It's oh gosh,
across from Gibson.
Yeah,
And
it's called Taste 222,
Is that right?
and they have the best mac and cheese I've ever had.
Is
by
that
far.
right?
Yeah.
You know, I was going to ask you, John, you know all of these people, but you work. And you know, I've seen you out socially a few times here and there, but recreational, and I know you can play basketball, but do you take time to, and your daughter is grown now, isn't she?
Yeah, she's 28 years old.
And what does she do for you now?
I wish she would do something at Ariel, but she's decided she's at Stanford Business School, and she's spending the summer at a cosmetics company called Glossier in New York. So I think we're going to lose her to New York. She loves that city.
Well, you know, she has great parents. You know, Desiree's doing well, I hope.
Yeah, she is, and you know, she used to run the lottery a long time ago. When you
Yes,
talked
she
about
did.
the lottery.
Yeah, brilliant. Caller, you're on the air with John.
Hi, Assalamu alaikum, Brother Munir, Sister Noor Muhammad calling from Camden, New Jersey, and greetings to your guests.
Greetings, Sister Carmen from
Yes,
from
we're
Camden.
enjoying.
Go ahead.
Yes, we're enjoying the show. My question for the guests is regarding finances, economics, investing, trading. A lot of black people shy away from those fields because it seems complex and confusing. So I'm wondering, is it as confusing as it's said to be, or are there miscommunications to our community to keep us away from those kinds of fields?
You know, I think a lot of the large private equity firms and venture capital firms have tried to make it seem very mysterious. And you know, they hire their friends and family, people they grew up with from the same country club, and then when we apply for those jobs, they always have some excuse why we're not qualified. And you know, it's absolutely heartbreaking, because here in Chicago, most of the major private equity firms have never had an African-American professional, let alone an African-American partner. And this, again, is where all the wealth's being created today, is in that part of the economy. So I think it is something that you're right. They're making it harder than they should. I think for us, that means, like always, we've got to be twice as good. We've got to take the finance courses. We've got to take the accounting courses, understand balance sheets better than anyone else, read everything that they read and more.
Yeah.
And that's what Melody Hobson did.
That's what she did.
Yeah, she just read and read and read. So when people would be surprised at how much that she knew, and that she knew more than they did, they had to give her those opportunities.
Yeah.
And you just got to also then make sure that you're getting those right internships.
So when you were recruiting her at 17, and of course you went to Princeton. Didn't you go to Princeton?
I did.
Yeah, okay. What was the criteria? What were you looking for? And how did you convince her? You know?
Well, it was interesting. At Princeton, they have something called the Schools Committee that makes sure that all the prospective students in a region get interviewed by an alumnus. And so I worked my way up till I was chairman of the Schools Committee, and then I created a special program to recruit minority students and make sure all the minority students got interviewed also. And so Melody showed up at everything. She showed up with the events for the majority students. She showed up with the events for the minority students. She came to all the special events. And then we had a big dinner for all the admitted students. And I saw that she had so much charisma, and she was so energetic. I put her at the head table with our key basketball recruit.
Okay.
And she was planning to go to Harvard, but sat next to a guy who basically convinced her that she should at least explore Princeton. And the next week, small story, but Bill Bradley was coming through town, and this alumnus,
Basketball Nick.
Bill Bradley, who was a Hall of Fame Nick basketball player, great basketball player at Princeton, who ran for president.
Right, he did.
You know,
Senator?
Senator from New Jersey for 3 terms. This alum created an opportunity for Bill Bradley to meet Melody, and Bill Bradley closed the deal. And the nice part of the story is that when Melody got married to George Lucas about 7 years ago, Bill Bradley walked her down the aisle.
Is that right?
Yeah, it was crazy. And
that was something.
So I could see, and Bill Bradley could see, all of us could see at that early age that she was truly something special.
Oh, she's brilliant. She's brilliant. I think, do I have another call? Okay. We're streaming live. I know you wanted to do something else. You kind of wanted to leave early, but let me take one last
take
break.
your time.
Okay. All right, brothers and sisters, we're talking to John Rogers. If you have a friend, call them and tell them we're streaming live. If you want to talk to someone about finances, this is the man. We'll be right back.
This portion of the Munir Muhammad Show is brought to you by East Lake Management, innovative solutions for building communities of the future today.
At Cook County, your health is our priority at every stage of life. Our team of primary care physicians is focused on keeping your entire family healthy with convenient hours and locations throughout Cook County so you can focus on what matters. We've served the people of Cook County for more than 180 years. We're ready to serve them now with today's modern medicine. We are Cook County Health. Look at us now.
Eat and Run Chicken and Fish has the only chicken you can reheat and eat. It's good as mother's and better than the others. It is the chicken even mothers love. We've been serving the community for over 30 years. We cook with 100% vegetable oil and are open 7 days a week, including holidays. We're located at 87th and Hermitage. Contact us at 773-429-1812 for your takeout order, or let us provide all your catering needs. For the best chicken of your life, it's Eat and Run.
We're back, and we're talking to John Rogers, the CEO of Ariel Capital. You know, for someone who still may be a little lame or naive, exactly what do you do? I mean, in investments, you mentioned 40 stocks or key stocks that you deal with. So give me kind of an overall view. Make me want to be John Rogers.
Well, we are in two basic businesses at Ariel. We manage stock portfolios for wealthy individuals, family foundations, endowments, big pension funds like Chicago Teachers Pension Fund. And all of those types of institutions, when they're big pools of money, they'll have anywhere from 10 to 150 different firms managing their money in stocks and bonds and real estate. Again, private equity, hedge funds, venture capital, international and global investing.
Okay.
So the work that we do here in Chicago, I focus on small and mid-cap value investing. I find small and mid-sized companies to invest in. Okay. And we talked earlier about companies like KKR. We own stock in companies like Smuckers.
Smuckers, the jelly
and jam. Everyone knows Smuckers. We've owned stock in CBS forever. You know, we love the television and media stocks. We own stock in Madison Square Garden, the world's greatest arena.
Right,
so we're part owners of the Knicks, and a small bit. You know, Jim Dolan owns a big chunk of it. But we like to invest in public companies that we know the names, we know the brands, are going to be around forever. And so that's part of our business. And then the second business we have is that we have mutual funds for individual investors.
Okay.
They're invested in the same stocks that we give the wealthy individuals and the endowments and the pension plans. But the mutual funds is what we do is we pool thousands of people's money together. Our Ariel fund, our flagship fund that I mentioned earlier, is 31 years old. It has over $2 billion. But it has people who have $1,000 in there to people who have $1 million in that fund.
Okay.
And I take that $2.2 billion and invest it in basically 40 stocks.
You know, I remember some years back, and you probably would remember this too, because things were going bad for most everybody. And I had you on, and you were saying, well, we just do the same thing, and things are going to get better. I mean, you go back and talk about how the stock market has been, and you look at the longevity of it, and I mean, to be able to pick it up like that, never panic. I didn't see your chest beat, you know. So where do you remove the fear? Because $2.2 billion is a lot of money, and a lot of people jump out of windows when they lose a lot of money, but you always felt confident that you would overcome.
It was a horrible period, the financial crisis of 2008 and 2009. You know, we managed totally as a firm $13 billion, but we lost way more than half our money during that period. We lost about 80% of our assets during the financial crisis. It was horrific. The good decision we made, though, was that we believed in our strategy and our philosophy. We went out and bought our favorite stocks while they were going down. And because we had the courage and the belief in our strategy and philosophy and the belief in our companies, we've been able to have great returns coming out of the bottom of the market crisis. So we're actually out of something like roughly several hundred mutual funds. We're number one in our category. We've had over 24% returns since the March 9th, 2009 bottom. So it's been a great story, but it's because we didn't get afraid and sell when everyone else was selling. We were in there buying our best companies, and it takes real true belief. And we're value investors. We like to find these companies while they're out of favor and buy them at bargain prices. And they certainly were real bargains during the financial crisis.
All right, let's take a call. Caller, you on the air with John Rogers.
Assalamu alaikum. This is your sister Carl from Birmingham, Alabama, and I'm happy that you have Mr. Rogers on your show. But I have a concern, and I've been thinking so much about, Walmart. They've gone up on the food, and food is just so expensive. And I was thinking, is there a way that we could pool our resources and help and get some grocery stores established? And we could sell our food at a low price. Do you have any information about something like that happening?
I think you're looking for an acquisition firm. I don't think you acquire things like. We'll find someone for you, and I'll give you a call. That's my biological sister. She wants you to know she's in Birmingham. Walmart should have been out of business in Birmingham. Let's take another call. Caller, you on the air?
Assalamu alaikum. This is Brother Jamil calling from Chicago. I had a question as far as how do you choose what public companies that you all invest in? Like, what is the process that you all would have to go through to decide if you wanted to invest in the Madison Square Garden or any other place? Thank you.
Well, that's, you're right. That's at the heart of what we do. We have about 10 of us who are in our research department. Each of the analysts that we have, they cover usually two industries.
Okay.
So we have somebody who does nothing but cover financial services companies and media companies. Someone else who just follows industrial companies. Someone else who has healthcare. Everybody has a specialty or two specialties that they follow, and it's their job to know all the companies within their sector, and then to be able to recommend to me and our senior portfolio managers which stocks are coming out as bargains and which ones we should look at. The other thing that we do, though, is I'm reading all the time. Everything: Black Enterprise, Forbes, Fortune, Business Week, Barron's, Wall Street Journal, looking for new ideas.
Black Enterprise used to be ran by, the son took over. What was the father's name?
Earl Grey.
Earl Grey. I met Earl, but I met the son too. So, these guys are pretty knowledgeable about money matters and things of that nature too. And so there are a lot of people that know of these things.
Yeah, but I would say one thing I just make sure is that I think it's also important to study the competition. What we do is understand what all the other mutual fund managers who have an investment style like us, what they're buying and what they're selling. And the world's greatest investor, I mentioned once earlier, is Warren Buffett. He has an annual meeting every year in Omaha where for 6 hours he and Charlie Munger, his business partner, talk about their favorite stock ideas. He has an annual report that he writes every year. I do go. I've been going the last 15 years. And I study everything that Warren talks about. I watch him on CNBC to see what his favorite stocks, what his favorite areas are. So watching CNBC, it used to be you'd watch Wall Street Week with Louis Rukeyser. You got to expose yourself to as many ideas as possible, but also stick to the areas that you know well, as I said earlier. So we don't follow every industry.
But you say you have analysts. What's the criteria to be an analyst for you?
Typically, most of our analysts are people who've gone to business school. We do a lot of our recruiting here in our hometown at the University of Chicago, Booth School. Again, I said earlier, I'm vice chairman there, so I've got good relationships with the university. We really believe that we actually just created a program you'd be interested in at the university for minority students to get paid internships in the investment offices of major endowments throughout the United States. So we have 20 students this year at everywhere from the Kresge Foundation in Michigan, Knight Foundation in Miami, Joyce Foundation here in Chicago, and MacArthur Foundation. They're also at the University of Chicago and Rush Presbyterian Hospital. Our minority students are getting exposed to the markets in that way. But we also realize that some of those students as we get to know them and nurture them and mentor them, some of them might ultimately become analysts at Ariel.
Right.
And they'll have this exposure to the financial world before they come and work with us.
I'm going to take another call, but I want to mention something. The medical district, where, you know, there's a lot of money being spent in this area. Do you invest in something like that?
Not in this. We only invest in publicly traded healthcare companies.
Okay.
And that's what we like to see.
All right. Caller, you're on the air with John Rogers.
Hi, John. My name is Brendan. I'm currently interning in banking, and I'm quickly finding that this isn't the route I want to take, and I like the asset management side a little more. Is there any advice on changing directions and going in that route?
Hey, one thing you can change when you call here, you can ask for both of us. I'm here too. Now, where you calling from?
I'm from the south side of Chicago.
Oh, okay. Now, go ahead. Yeah.
I think that, you know, we do this a lot. We sit and talk with young people all the time. People come down to the office, often on Saturdays, and we try to work one-on-one, getting to know people and talk about what's part of the financial services world they might fit the best in. When it comes to asset management, we think it helps if you come with an investment strategy and philosophy and a point of view where whoever's interviewing you can see that you've been thoughtful about the markets.
Right.
And you understand all the latest economic models that are going on and different ways of thinking about the markets. I think so. Just seeing someone who's widely read, and then you got to get out and network and let people know that you're interested in working in the asset management side. There's not a lot of firms here in Chicago that are independently owned, but we always love to be helpful in helping people network and navigate.
You know, John, you know, being in this business that I'm in, I get a lot of things from the U.S. Attorney, you know, as far as media alerts about people being indicted, people fraudulently taking people's monies, you know, these investors, they claim they're investors, and you find out later on that they took the people's money and invested it someplace else. How do you know when you're dealing with a reputable firm? You know, because people talk a good game, and
It's true.
You know what I'm saying?
That's very true. There's a lot of frauds out there.
Yeah. And so, but tell me, how can a person do that so easily? What makes people gullible like that? You hear about a guy say, well, he took 40 people's money, he was investing in this, investing in that, but, you know, it was one guy, you know, and gaining trust like that. So how do you tell the people to be wary of that?
You read about these all the time. I think the main thing you've got to do is you've got to check everyone's references.
Yeah.
It's like getting a good doctor, getting a good lawyer, finding as many people who've actually used them before, and do deep background checks. Make sure they graduated from the schools they said they graduated from, because a lot of times people make up their resume. They say they got a business degree or they went to this college, they really didn't. So I tell people doing those background checks is important. The reference checks are important, and there's just no shortcut to that.
Well, I like the way you put it, talking about analysts who, you know, go out and do this investigation for you, and then you all meet together to determine whether you're going to take their advice or not. Sounds like a reputable company to me. You know, people dot their I's and cross their T's. So I always like to call you friend, John, and you're a great man. You have a minute or two. What do you leave my audience with around the world, wherever they may be, in thinking about investment? Anything you want to say?
Well, I would just say that for my thoughts are for young people, I've always said, try to get that job or that internship at their college endowment office. That's a way to learn all about the investment world and the parts of the investment world where the most wealth is being created. The second thing, if we care about wealth creation for our community and creating real equal opportunity for our community, it's up to us. If we don't speak up and fight from our leadership roles in corporate America or nonprofits, if we're on the board or in the C-suite, we have to speak up and make sure that all the opportunities are not going to white men only and excluding us. And if we don't fight for each other, the world's not going to change.
Well, we certainly can say that you have demonstrated that you can fight for others. Well, what about our friend Les Coney you talked to Les lately?
I was texting with Les today. Les is a great friend. He's someone who's always looking out for his friends and his teammates. And I'm going to see him Friday night at a tennis tournament here in town, where Kamal Murray's tennis place.
Kamal, I've had him on before.
Yeah, he's great. And Les is one bringing people together again, like always.
So where's the tennis? Oh, okay, let me take this call. 30 seconds. Caller, you on the air?
Yes. How are you, Brother Munir?
Is this not Les Coney?
This is Les Coney checking in on you.
Oh, you heard us mention your name, huh?
That's unbelievable.
I heard you have one of my favorite people in the world on your show tonight.
Yeah, we were just talking about you. You wouldn't believe it.
Oh, man, I couldn't get it.
No, but that's too bad. But we talked about you. You can see the show. All you got to do is go online. You'll see us right now.
I'm going to do that right after I hang up.
Well, Les, I'm glad you invited
John. To ask John Rogers a question?
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
I just wanted to know, since the Chicago Sky moved from the suburbs back to the city, how has it been? And I wanted him to know that I had the chance to attend a game with my daughter Chanel recently, and I was blown away at how impressed the arena was, how impressed the team, how good the team, both teams were. And so I wanted to see.
I gotta go, Les. Les, I gotta go, but I'm gonna keep you. But the show is over. But thank you, Les. Call us.
Thanks so much, Les.
All right, my dear brothers and sisters, thank you so much for watching, and may Allah bless you with the light of understanding. As I greet you in peace, Assalamu alaikum.